Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the third session of Day 4, Week 2 of ALYFE Connects, our very first virtual-only event brought to you exclusively by ALYFE Group. Tonight, we are honored to be joined by a familiar face on the KL industry and entertainment circuit, Natalie Kniese. Natalie is co-founder of the Berlin KL and Eastdays and is here with us tonight to give us a masterclass in public speaking. So please, without further ado, help me welcome Natalie. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I've got my coffee with me. I can't wait to swap it for a glass of wine once the session is over. But, how are you, Nat?
I'm good, thanks. Slowly getting into this new normal, as what they will call it. This whole MCO, I think, has brought everybody to a little bit of like a panic. But I think everybody's slowly getting into it. I'm okay. Yeah, I'm doing good.
Good. I mean, how have you found it? I mean, we're now what, 5 or 6 weeks into this thing, so I think the adjustment period is over, and I think as you said, pardon me, as you say, this is now the new normal. So, how are you finding the new normal? How are you finding life at home so far?
For me, I think the first 2 to 3 weeks was chaotic. I think I was, constantly in fear that I had the virus. And I didn't really know what to do. I mean, like, I used to be a radio presenter. I used to be an announcer. I used to do all of these things to do with the entertainment industry. And then I stopped and started working, doing my own business. So I have 2 businesses deeply affected by the COVID-19 virus. So the first 2 to 3 weeks was just like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to make sure my business still runs? Just trying to brainstorm a lot of ideas, just trying to understand what I can do. But now I think I've kind of like found my rhythm. I'm paying more attention to myself. I'm slowly trying to remember what it was like for me to be a creative person and for me to focus on myself. I mean, throughout these 6 years or so, all I've done is just try to work, do the business and not leave any time for me. So for me, it's good because I get to understand me. What about you?
I'm likewise, actually. You forget or you take for granted almost sometimes just how fast-paced life can be and how we're always just hustling and moving forward. Now, there is no shame in that. There is no shame in ambition and being busy and wanting to move things forward. But we get wrapped up in the rat race, as people call it, often more so than we realize. And so I've been really enjoying, even like not having to commute. And just have extra time in the morning and in the evening, even to think where usually I'd be on like a packed, like sweaty train, kind of uncomfortable, whatever. Now I'm just like, I get an extra sort of hour at least in my day just to like, spend a bit of time on myself. So it's been a good time, I think, to recharge, reflect, recalibrate in many ways. So I'm getting kind of used to it. But, I miss my friends and I miss our parties and I miss all that. So but and likewise, like you said, I'm sure you're missing them more than I am, because of course I know that that's an area and an industry you're very heavily involved in through the Berlin, which is one of your businesses. So tell us a little bit, Nat, about your background and where you're coming to us from.
Okay, so I did radio, TV, live hosting, VO, and also being an MC for about 15 years of my life. Actually, I'm still involved in it, TV presenting or doing MC jobs or even doing occasional voiceover jobs. But when I stopped radio in 2014, I think, I decided to take one gap year and go crazy and just not work. And then I decided to start a business. So the first thing that me and my partner, or my 2 other partners, we thought of doing a bar. So we started with this big idea and we didn't know how we would execute this idea, but we ended up doing it, and we had a really successful bar in Chinatown called the Berlin KL. If you haven't heard of it, then you should have come before. But yeah, we had the Berlin KL, and thankfully we closed and stopped operations back in 2019 in October. So 5 months before COVID-19 happened, we shut the bar. So it's a blessing in disguise. I mean, if we still had the bar, we would be struggling significantly. It would be really difficult because I see other people in the industry and, it looks really tough. So I really am lucky to have been able to have closed at a good time. And now we're focusing more on pop-up bars, events, management, planning your events. And also, what else do we do? We do parties and collaborations. So we work closely with places like WKL and smaller other restaurants like SPG by Bijan. So we're doing a lot of events, and COVID-19 happened, and it's silence.
It happened, yeah. It really hit us.
So it's tough. It's a tough industry to be in. The other one of my businesses, which I started last year in November 2019, was a short-term rental management company. So we were doing really, really well. We were okay. We were on it. We're trying to get houses for people to live in. We were getting bookings, and then COVID-19 happened also. So nobody's going on a vacation. Nobody's staying anywhere. So both of my businesses are now silent, but we're trying to focus more on content, and we're trying to figure out, what is the best thing for us to do once the MCO is lifted, once everybody is happy to kind of go out. Maybe social distancing still applies, but we're trying to see what we can do, once we've been given the all clear, and we're trying to plan forward. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed, yeah. And I'm sure, are there any, on the content side, what are you doing to keep the audience, what are you doing to stay visible at the minute? What kind of, because this, for example, is how, ALYFE, while not involved in the accommodation side, of course, although maybe we could be one day, maybe A could stand for accommodation life at one point, but
I guess so,
we're obviously very heavily involved in the lifestyle marketing space. We do a lot of events and production and guest listing and so on. And so like you've encountered, a lot of that has gone very, very quiet too. So we're now, moving things online and trying to create this space, this community, which has been wonderfully fun to build so far. So thank you all for tuning in already, for those who are watching at home and have been for a while. So we're trying to now to create this community in this space and remain, because we miss you guys, we've had a lot of great speakers on, a lot of close friends of ours, a lot of friends of ALYFE, as we call them, come along and they've been wonderful guests and given us some really amazing insights and workshops and all the rest of it. So we've been trying now to sort of do what we can to move that side of our business into this virtual space. So what is it that you've been doing on the content side?
Well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you. Andy surprised me by messaging me on my Facebook, and he said, "Would you like to do this?" So I want to say thank you so much to Andy and also ALYFE, and also, of course, you as well, Jacob, for having me to speak on this talk. It's nice to talk to someone that's, far away. So yeah, what we're planning for both of my businesses is Berlin has a lot of exciting things for once the MCO has been lifted. We're planning to do a few things where it's more involved with I want to say something, but I don't want to say something. I'm just do I say my idea or not? But maybe you can just follow at the Berlin KL. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for putting that there. Follow.
I think, and if you do give them a follow on Instagram, I think you'll see pretty swiftly what Nat is referring to. The Berlin do things differently and wonderfully so. And I think we can look forward to many exciting and very, very interesting, I think flamboyant, we can get away with saying, perhaps.
We do flamboyant. The only reason why we do flamboyant is because we realize that, there is a market for this. And, we have a lot of flamboyant friends. So we want to make sure that they are included in some of the nightlife events. And for most of it, it does really, really well. So we do things like Berlin is Burning. If you have a look at the IG, you will understand, and have a look at the hashtag, you will see that that it's a very successful event. We were gonna do the 7th one in April, but unfortunately it did not happen. So yeah,
I think I went the 2nd, and that was only a couple of years ago, max. You guys have been busy.
Yeah, we do it twice a year. So yeah, we do like to create interesting content for our followers or maybe our fans to come to. So events, definitely. And once the MCO is lifted, you just follow the Instagram, and we will be giving you all the details of how you can participate in some of these activities that we have done for the Berlin KL, especially for events and parties. It's very important.
Excellent. Yeah, and we really look forward to having those back once all this is lifted.
For sure. Okay. So, the main reason why I'm here is actually to talk about my workshop. What I did in the last, 3 to 4 weeks was spend more time concentrating on myself. So I kind of put my two businesses on the shelf for a second. I mean, I still paid attention to them, but I kind of found something inside of me where I was kind of like, you know what, I really want to do this. And that was educating people. So I felt this need for me to do a public speaking workshop. I mean, I've worked in radio and TV and been in the industry for about 15 years. I have a lot to share about how to speak, whether in a conversation or on a stage. And I thought, you know, why not do a public speaking workshop? A lot of people have asked me before, how do I do it? How do I get into radio? How do I speak better? How do I do this? And I always try to give them tips and tricks. But like now it's kind of like, okay, let's just try to do a workshop and see how it goes. So if you like it, and if it betters you as a better speaker, then, you know, I hope it works, then good.
Well, I mean, it's safe to say that they'll be learning from one of the best. I mean, as you say, you've been around the industry for a while now, and you've worked across a lot of different mediums with a lot of different clients, events, launches, shows, online, everything. You really have done it all. I think it's fair to say. Just out of interest, before you delve into the workshop and the topics and the structure and everything itself, I'm curious to know if maybe this is a tough question for you to ask. What out of all those experiences you've had, I mean, maybe not specific ones, or if you can think of one, great. But I mean, what area of that industry, or what kind of role within that industry, like, did you really enjoy the most? Was it, for example, hosting, or was it voiceovers, or was it presenting, for example? What did you find that you really, really tuned into the most?
I really enjoyed my time on radio. I wouldn't go back and do it again. A lot of people say, why don't you go back and do radio? I wouldn't do it again. But I really enjoyed those 10 years because from the beginning of doing radio, I had many, many opportunities to delve into other things. For example, TV presenting and voiceovers and MC jobs. But the core of everything and how I got to relay my creativity was through radio. I mean, for most of the other things, you cannot be too creative. You have to follow a script. You have to make sure that everything is right. So with radio, I was allowed to be super creative. And if you know me well enough, I am not one of those girly girls. I am a dork. So I got to relay all of my dorkiness on radio. And I just had so much fun just making something out of nothing and just entertaining people. I loved when people said to me like, oh, you know, I like this when you did this, or I laughed so hard when you did that. And it was just very rewarding. It was like, it was great. I like radio. I mean, it was really cool. So,
and you were just being yourself and making a career out of it. That's the dream, I think. Yeah?
The best thing about this career or public speaking or whatever it might be is, you know, you think that you're expected to make a performance every time you go up on the stage, but no, it's actually just you having a conversation. So the more that you are yourself, the more that you let your true sort of colors shine through, the more somebody connects with you. So, you know, like if you like a dork, you're going to connect with the dork.
Isn't that a song?
Oh, is it? What is it? What song?
I'm going to sing it. Isn't that a song by Phil Collins?
True Colors? Yeah, okay, I got it.
I think that's easy. You can, that's the radio announcer in you. You speak in song lyrics.
Probably, I don't know. Yeah, so radio was really, really fun. And the funniest part of it all was I never wanted to go into radio. I set out to be an architect. It was really strange how I, you know,
how the heck did you end up on the air from architecture? Please tell me about that.
I'll tell you. Okay. I was studying in England. I was doing my A-levels. So I was in Exeter, or actually I was in Plymouth. And I came back on a holiday, and a friend said to me, why don't you, try working here to make some extra money? And as a poor teenager, I was like, sure, let's just try working here. And one thing led to another, and I eventually found myself working in a audio production house. And Fly Guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but most Malaysians would be familiar with him, especially somebody who's probably my age or older. So he was there and he was auditioning for a new radio station. And he said to me, why don't you try audition? And I said to him, it's not my thing. And I'm only on a holiday. I'm on a short summer break. And he said, just try, you never know. So I went in there, and when you don't really want something, you don't really you don't really try too hard. So I went in there, I did the audition. A day later, he calls me and he said, "You got the job." And I was like, "What?" And I said to my boss at that time at the audio house, I was like, "No, I'm not doing this. I want to work here." And she said, "Go work in the radio station because you're rubbish at the job that you're doing here." So I was like, okay. So yeah, I started in radio by pure accident. I learned everything like by myself. There were no courses for me to take. I didn't have a mentor. I had to learn just by trial and error. So I think, me doing this workshop is kind of just like, here, look, I'm teaching you everything that I have learned from being the shy teenager on radio to being me now. So I think, it's been a long journey, but it's been a good journey. It's really taught me to be a better person. And, it's given me lots and lots of advantages, I think.
It must have been a fascinating journey through all of it. And of course, from radio, you went to, you mentioned a bit of TV work in the past. Is that right? A bit of presenting work and so on?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. So which leads us to sort of which now, of course, you're condensing into this workshop. So tell us a little bit about the workshop and like what people can expect from signing up. Like I'm sure you bring a lot. I'm sure you bring all of your industry experience and your exposure and the lessons you've learned, and you're crystallizing it into this wonderful workshop for
sure.
People. So tell us a little bit about what people can expect. How is it structured? What are the modules, I guess you could say? What are the topics? What are the subjects? What is the masterclass?
Well, it's super, super condensed. Like, as I was writing the syllabus for this, I realized that there are many aspects to public speaking. So I'm trying to condense everything into an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. So what I teach you is, basic things. I don't really delve into it a lot, but I do teach you the essentials of it. So you will understand what public speaking is. You will understand the benefits of speaking well in public. I'll also teach you how to overcome your fears of public speaking based on my own experience and also from other people and research as well. I'll teach you how to find your speaking style, how to write a really good speech, and how to communicate your thoughts. And I'll also teach you good communication techniques to keep your audience engaged. So this public speaking is not necessarily just for stage presentations. It's also for spontaneous conversations, how you speak to somebody every single day. You're bound to have a spontaneous conversation. You're bound to be put on the spot in a conversation. How do you answer? And how do you calm yourself to answer properly?
I think that's fantastic because I think we had this conversation with a guest, Nadia Heng, who I'm sure you'll know. She was with us yesterday discussing a similar topic, and she pointed out something which I hadn't really considered, and that is speaking is not necessarily just addressing one big audience or whatever else have you. Public speaking is something that you come across every day. It's a situation that you will likely find yourself in every day without realizing it. But when you, whether it's like asking for a raise, or giving a presentation, or trying to sell something to somebody, or even just placing an order at a coffee shop, in a way, it's all public speaking. And so I think when you approach any and every one of these situations with a bit more, I hate to say it, mindfulness, I guess.
Yes.
It's just one of these. Okay. But when you go in with like the mindset, I should say, of a structured mindset with a proper approach in mind, you are able to get your point across, whatever that point may be, a lot more clearly. So I want to put out to the audience, by the way, so I won't ask Nat to give away all of her secrets because then she won't have anything left to sell. But we do have her here. We do have her here for another 45 minutes for free. So make the most of it while she is. So if you have any questions or comments, or you want any quick advice or tips, put them in the comments below the Facebook video and I'll read them out on the screen so we can try and squeeze as much from her as we can while she's here. But we'll be sure not to give everything away, so there is still something left for you to divulge to your students.
For sure.
So guys, comment away down below. So I think the first question I have, Nat, or the first thing I want to address is what strategies do you find help you overcome like nervousness or anxiety or what have you before like a big job? Do you still get nerves? First of all, do you still get nerves?
Of course. I was nervous before this live show even began. I'm always nervous, and I think
I don't bite and I can't bite. I'm miles away.
No, seriously. I still am super nervous to do anything that involves me having to say something to the public. And it's okay for you to be nervous, because it's a very important thing. Nervousness brings on adrenaline. And when you have adrenaline, you're more than ready to do a better job than you would necessarily be. So I like feeling nervous, because I know, and I will address, like, I am nervous, but I know that I'm about to do something of consequence. So the nervousness will always happen. Some people don't, some people lose it, but for me, it's always there. I always am nervous. I will never lose it.
It's this is something else we touched on. It's good. You got to embrace the fear. Don't run from it. Use it. It sharpens your instincts and gives you a kind of energy that you can harness. Don't let it control. Don't let it control you. Try to control it. So then, but where do you? Because for some people, it is almost a crippling fear. Some people really, really do not like standing up in front of people, whether it's a small room,
Yes.
whether it's a small family gathering, or whether it's being asked to make a speech at a wedding, or whatever it might be. Some people, no matter the situation, no matter the audience, some people simply hate it. So
I'll give you.
What is your advice? Sorry, yeah. Give me something.
No, okay. What is my advice? I mean, I'll give you some facts and figures, just so you know. And maybe, if you're in any one of these categories, you don't feel so alone. There are about 10% of the world's general population. They are the 10% that love public speaking. These people have no fear. They get a huge buzz from being up on stage. They love it. Like, they like the attention. And to be honest with you, like, for me, I don't know how these people do it, and I really respect them, because it's super brave. Like, I will never be in that category. The other 10% are the ones that, as you said earlier, experience this crippling fear. They get nauseous, they get anxious, there's butterflies in their stomach, their head gets hot. So you have 10% really like it, 10% cannot do it at all. And the other 80% is where most people belong to. I think I belong to the 80% as well. I get butterflies, I get anxious, I don't sleep much the night before, can't breathe before I begin to even speak. But I know that after I'm done with my stage presentation, I know that, it's going to be okay. I'll give you a story. When I first went on radio back in the year 2005, that's 15.
Welcome back, Nat. Everything okay?
Sorry. I don't know. It said you're not connected to the internet, but I'm connected to the internet.
No, sorry. You're back with us now, and we can hear you fine. Sorry, you were saying you just started your story, and we lost you.
Yeah, it was suspense. Okay, so I started radio in the year 2005. As I told you earlier, I didn't really want to get into it, but somehow I magically found myself sitting in a chair in a very cold studio in KLIA. And I was surrounded by these microphones, these bright flashing lights, this control panel. If you've ever been to a radio station, the control panel is huge. Like, it spans the entire desk. And it was my very first radio shift at 6 o'clock in the morning. Two of my co-hosts, 6 o'clock. It was a 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift. And two of my co-hosts, it was Fly Guy and this guy called Jason Cottam. They were talking to each other. They were, laughing. They were bantering. And I was just sat in the corner going, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I'm so scared. And then it was my turn to reply to a comment that they had made. And they just looked at me. And for the first time in my entire life, I just sat there and I froze. And I was like, what am I going to say? I knew what to say, but it just would not come out. And I think the first two words, or actually two sounds that I made on radio was, mm-hmm. That was what I replied, mm-hmm. And it was just crazy. But you learn, you learn and you understand that, fear takes control of your self-confidence and your self-esteem. You need to learn how to manage your anxiety. You need to learn how to manage that fear. Once you do and you have control of it, it allows you to do so many more things. It allows you to really shine and show people that, you know, this is me, and this is my character, and some people will fall in love with you purely because of it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's endearing, right? Like it's very. I mean, of course, in an ideal world, we'd all be very professional and polished, and no one would make any mistakes. But you know, that's not real. It's not human, and it's more endearing, and it creates a more meaningful connection, I think, with the audience. I mean, depending on the job, the role, the presentation, whatever, sometimes you really have to be extremely corporate, extremely polished, and not, you know, not fluff your line. But there's really not as much harm in doing so as you think. But of course, like when we're nervous, our anxiety goes through the roof. We fear the worst. It's always like worst case scenario. But yeah, I think we can give ourselves a bit of a break sometimes, you know?
For sure. And you also need to, you know, you give yourself a break, and you also need to learn how to manage that anxiety. I think you asked me this question earlier and I just did not reply, and I'm really sorry. So yeah, how do you manage your anxiety, you know, when you're about to give a speech or when you're about to speak to someone? If you're a shy person, how do you take control of that and, you know, make sure that you don't end up looking silly by not being able to reply to a question? So what you need to do is you need to kind of learn how to do a few things. The first thing that I like to do is I like to make sure that I go early to whatever it is it might be. This is more for a stage presentation, not necessarily for a spontaneous conversation, but for a stage presentation, it's so important for you to make a good impression. So the reason why I like to go early is because if you go early, you get to familiarize yourself with the space that you are going to be speaking in. You get to have some time to kind of like calm yourself down. You get to see the room before you even see the people. And if you go early also, you get to say hi to everyone. And by some weird way, saying hi to everyone makes you feel more comfortable because you feel like you already know them. So if you go a little bit early, you kind of have time to just digest. Never be late, never be just on time. Go early because, you know, a lot of good happens when you go to things early. I don't know, maybe it's a way of thinking, but I know a lot of people who like to be late, and that's my biggest pet peeve. Don't be late. Either be early or be right on time, but for MC jobs, be early because it's really important.
Especially if I may, in this part of the world, shall we say.
I know what you're gonna say.
No, I'm not gonna say anything beyond that. But you know, punctuality is a little less precious to some people out here. So
for sure.
Yeah, we all know how you feel. But I think you're right. It's the only really professional way of doing it. Like, you've got to be there early. You've got to show up like you mean it, and introduce yourself to the right people. And like you said, get comfortable with who they are and why you're there, and just put yourself in that context early and comfortably and calmly, rather than just like rushing and like, you know, you're a bit flustered and you've already got, you know, before you've even got time to get nervous, you're already like, your adrenaline's already high because you're just rushing, you know?
Yes.
So
it's very important for you to be early, I think. And couple that along with, it sounds so stupid, but like breathing. Breathing is super important to manage your anxiety. I think people do this in anxiety management as well. You could do this for when you are about to speak, or when you know you're about to enter a situation where you are required to speak at 100%. So it could be like if you're doing a stage presentation. It could also be if you are, you know, talking to somebody that, you know, you respect, like your boss or something. Take some time to breathe. It's very important. There's a training done by Navy SEALs. Have you heard of box breathing?
I've not heard of box breathing. No, that sounds kind of interesting, especially if it's a Navy SEALs practice. What do they have them do? I bet it's intense.
No, it's not intense at all. It's a breathing technique that helps you to stay calm. So you can do it with me, actually. What you need to do is first expel all the air from your lungs, everything, and then keep it empty for about 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and then you inhale through your nose for about 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and then hold it for about 4 seconds. Don't put any pressure. Be easy. And then exhale for another 4 seconds. If you do this and you repeat it 10 to 20 times, for some reason, it just calms you down. It makes you feel very, very calm. It doesn't necessarily get rid of your anxiety, but it just stops you from spiraling out of control.
Sure.
So just try it next time.
I think, yeah, it must, like, I mean, I know that, I mean, that's kind of not that exact practice maybe, but I know that people do that before. There's this guy, Wim Hof, there's slight digression here, but there's a guy called Wim Hof. He's famous for swimming. He's famous for swimming under frozen lakes and rivers. So he'll go out into Alaska, he'll drill a hole in the ice, and then drill another hole in the ice like 100 meters away.
Oh, and okay.
Yeah, so they call him kind of like Sub-Zero Man or something. But he does, so he does this kind of, he's very into breathing. He does a lot of different breathing techniques. And I think what he says, yes, it's a huge help in calming him down. It relaxes the muscles and it just oxygenates the blood as much as possible. You get like that precious few extra seconds of air when you're underneath 3 feet of frozen ice. Yeah, so I think it's very, very, very cold. So I think when you're breathing steadily in a really measured and slow rhythm, I think the blood that's circulating around your body is doing a much better job than if you're like, again, so it goes back to if you're rushing and you're late and you're literally panting because you're out of breath because you've been rushing from the elevator to the auditorium and you're like, shit, where are my notes?
Yeah.
That is not going to set you up for like calm and relaxed, clear thinking, so breathing, very important.
Well, I learned this the hard way, actually. Being late, not breathing. I mean, there was once very early on in my career, I was super late to an MC job. It was a big client. I think it was in Sunway Pyramid. I had just finished a radio shift and I was supposed to be there in like half an hour. So from my office to Sunway Pyramid, it would have taken half an hour. But at that time, they didn't have Waze and I'm really bad with directions. So I ended up going to Putrajaya and I had to make a big U-turn and I was so late and I felt so bad because as a person, I hate being late. So when I was late, I was like, I just didn't know what to do. I had to start the event. I had to talk flustered. I could feel my ears were red because you're just not prepared. I mean, I knew exactly what I was going to say. I couldn't string 2 sentences together. I could not think. And I remember feeling so, excuse my French, but shitty. I felt really shitty. And I was just sitting there going, oh no, what am I going to do? Thankfully, the client kind of understood. And she was like, it's okay, don't worry about it. Stuff happens. But I vowed from that moment on to never be late again for anything that involves me having to show up and do a good job. It was always like, you want me there at 9? I'll be there at 8:30 or like 8:50. So yeah, I learned the hard way. It was tough. That was horrible. Still think about it to this day.
Oh, well, as long as it's something you're still learning from, it's never pleasant to revisit like an unpleasant memory in your mind like that. But as long as if it's keeping you on the straight and narrow, as it were, as far as punctuality is concerned, then keep it in your mind. Let it be a lesson, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of lessons, maybe this isn't a very nice way to ask this question, and you'll see why. You'll see why in a second, but. Having obviously done so much in the industry and not just yourself on stage, but you've worked with lots of other people and you've seen you've stood alongside plenty of other people presenting on stage and seen them on stage and all the rest of it. My question being, what have you seen that you would never advise like anybody to do when it comes to public speaking? Like, what are the big no-nos? What are the big things to avoid? And the reason I say it's a bad way to ask the question is because that's quite a negative perspective. But
it does.
Some people just don't set a good example, and it's obvious. And sometimes it's better to learn from those bad examples. So what have you seen on the public speaking circuit that has made you make a mental note to say, I will never do that, or you should not do that?
Have you ever been to an event where the CEO of the company can't speak, and the worst thing is when I think the biggest thing about this is, as a public speaker, you also, besides trying to make yourself be presentable, you need to know who you're talking to. Your audience is so important. There are a lot of MC jobs that I've done or events that I have gone to where they have, this is our CEO and he cannot speak. You are the maybe the owner of the company, but you cannot deliver your story. You don't know your audience, and it's pretty painful to watch as a viewer. And people start to become very rude as well. They start to talk over the person. They start to fidget. And you don't want people to do that. You don't want your audience to disengage from you. So I think a big thing is, while you try to better yourself as a public speaker, you also need to know who you're talking to and find that connection with your audience. So I can give you, and I can reel off a whole list of things that you shouldn't do, but I don't want to go into that, but I want you to also know that, instead of focusing too much on this, why don't you try to focus also on who you're talking to? Because in different situations, you'll be speaking differently. I'm talking to you now, but I wouldn't speak the same way if I were doing a press conference. The way that I talk to you is completely different. You need to learn how to adapt and be fluid in how you speak. I wouldn't make a joke if the prime minister was there. I'd be more, okay, Natalie, you be a nice person, so understanding your audience.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, it might depend which PM. I mean, Mahathir liked a joke, he was quite a cheeky fella, but no, of course, point is, you've got to know who you're talking to and how they will respond. Never and never make the assumption that like some people will get, maybe your humor or maybe tread carefully and with caution. And again, this goes back to what you were saying about be early, be prepared. Because like going back to your point about arriving early and like meeting everyone and saying hi and introducing yourself, like that might be a really, really valuable time for say if you're meeting like the event organizer, or say if you're meeting one of the clients, like they might just drop in. They might just use that time just to drop in last minute. Oh, by the way, mention this, or you should not mention that. Or whereas if you're arriving like last minute, you might not get the info, and then you might, say something you really, really shouldn't, for example. So again, I think preparedness is a crucial part of any good public speaking role, I guess.
It also looks bad on you too, if you arrive just on time or you arrive late, or people kind of think, do you really care for my event? Maybe not. So, but if you arrive early, your client or whoever it might be, the person that you're speaking to, they know that you value their time to be there, and you've been there earlier than them, and they're more than happy. They're like, oh, this person came early. They really want to make their point. But if this person is late and people are waiting, it's like, who is this person? You're already angry at the speaker before he's even arrived. So being early is a good thing.
Yeah, it just bad vibes. It just gets people really antsy and like a bit annoyed, and it's not a pleasant environment or an atmosphere to work within. Okay, another question I have. So this is all kind of, we're looking at a very kind of corporate or events or job, professional job perspective and context here. But we mentioned at the beginning, we touched on the fact that public speaking is really in any and all situations, even personal interaction can be public speaking to a degree. So what is your advice? Like say I'll give you an example of a situation, like making a small presentation at work, or asking your boss for a raise, for example. It's in a way public speaking, right? So what is your advice to someone who is extremely nervous about doing that? Like, what can they do within themselves to prepare for a conversation like that?
It's super, super simple. Whenever you speak to somebody, you need to remember to always be clear, concise, and relatable. Make it short, sweet, simple. Find one point that you want to put across and a supporting idea for it. Most people only remember one point unless you actually sat them down and went, okay, you're going to be learning a whole bunch of stuff. But if you want to make a point and you want your message to be heard, one point, one supporting point. So say what you want, why you need it. So if you want to ask your boss for a raise, it's super simple. Hey, boss, I would really like a raise. Why? Because I'm a really good worker. If you carry on with, oh, I have like this person to feed, or I have these bills to pay, or I have like, I need a raise because I can't get to, people just kind of tune off and they're kind of like, oh, okay, you can give a very good supporting sort of statement to go along with it, but try to make it clear and concise. I need a raise. Why? Because, oh, maybe I can't pay for my house loan and I'm a good worker. So a fast sort of sentence would be the best in trying to speak in that sort of sense. If you get what I mean. I don't know whether you get what I mean. Do you?
No, I do know you're absolutely right, because I think the more like explanation or the more run on that you do, and the more like you try to like explain your position, I think then it puts you in a position almost of weakness, because then whoever you're trying to convince like sees how hard of a time you are having to convince them.
Yeah.
Whereas your first point like should just be like, as you say, like, I'm a good worker, give me money.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you've got to be a bit more delicate than that, of course. But yeah, you're right, because the longer you spend, like the more there's nothing wrong with being able to really explain your point. But when you first make the point and make the statement, you should keep it short, keep it simple, keep it sweet.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of that has to be really strong. If you have anything else and your boss looks like he's interested, then elaborate a little bit. But everybody will agree with me. You don't like somebody who keeps going on and on and on without making a point or not even getting to a destination. So remember, short, sweet, simple, clear, concise, and relatable. And I think you're well on your way to trying to get what you want. We can try. Good luck.
That's it. I mean, yeah. Now might not be the best time to ask one's boss for a raise, given the circumstances we find. But or it's a good life tip for general use, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
And what kind of? I completely tailed off. I was thinking about sort of. I just lost my train of thought, because I was thinking about there was a couple of interesting points we touched on earlier. We touched on earlier, and indeed in yesterday's session with Nadia, she had interesting concepts to share. What have you found really? What's your preparation process like? Like, say if you're working with a client like that in an industry that is like unfamiliar to you or something, what is your preparation process like?
Because I have done this job for such a long time, my preparation process is not the same as how it would have been maybe 10 to 15 years ago. 10 to 15 years ago, I would have kind of like broken down the entire thing, rewrote it again to present for an MC event or anything like that. That was what I would have done. I would have really gone into it. But after a while, when you do this, you kind of, in your brain, you already know how to look at a script and see the main and important points. You don't even need a highlighter, because you've done it so many times that okay, here's what's happening. So you look at an entire script and the structure of what is happening. In your brain, you're thinking, okay, the introduction, the juicy part, presenting something, and then you're finished. So you already, as a presenter or a radio host or an MC, you already are looking at the structure. So that's what I do now. I just look at the structure and I'm like, okay, this is what's happening here. 2 or 3 main points. The only reason I would kind of look to my paper is because I don't know how to pronounce somebody's name, or I don't know how to, I don't remember somebody's name, or I just want to know some facts and figures like data. So for most people, you would need to rewrite everything, practice it over and over again. But for me, since I've done it for so long, I just look at it. I'm kind of like, okay, I know what to do. But that comes with practice.
Sure, and practice in itself is an excellent and obvious piece of advice to give as well. Anybody practice. And what about? I mean, again, touching on something which Nadia mentioned yesterday, and which you've just kind of alluded to too. You're already aware of like the structure rather than like the lines, for example. Like her big point was like, do not memorize, like do not just blindly memorize what you've got. You must understand what you're dealing with. Like you must have it so that you have a conversation, right? Like, because if you just blindly memorize it as a script, but then like your mind goes blank, you can't even freestyle. You can't even like attempt.
It's so much harder for you to memorize something if you don't know the structure of it. If I were to tell you to memorize something and you don't really know what you're reading, I mean, like, it's like when you read a book, you know, like you read one paragraph and you keep reading it because you've not digested it. Sometimes you can do this in MC jobs as well. So you can't just blindly memorize something. You have to understand or pick out a certain point in a paragraph and be like, okay, this paragraph is all about this. So once you develop that structure and you understand what goes into the structure, it's much easier to memorize your script. And you can use your own words to fill in the gaps. So you know, okay, today we're talking about public speaking. At the end of it, we'll have some tips and tricks. What do you do in the middle? You just fill it up with everything that you are comfortable with saying. So the most important 2 things or 3 things inside your script is what you remember, essentially. Sounds easy, but it's actually super difficult.
So it does. I mean, much easier said than done, of course. But I think it's a very important point to remember because, and it also just comes across much more naturally when you do understand it. You don't have to become an expert in this topic like overnight, of course. But it really, really helps if you can understand and hold at least a conversation about what you're speaking about, rather than just like reading it verbatim.
Yes,
because then
exactly.
If you come unstuck, or if the flow is interrupted or whatever, then you might be completely left blind, and then it's very robotic even to memorize lines anyway. It's better to be able to express yourself if you know things in advance. So prepare, practice, prevail.
Yes,
I think we can say that as. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left, guys, by the way. So any questions you do have for Nat, please do put them in the comments below, and we'll get round to those while she's still here, and we can squeeze some value out of her. But Nat, for the last 10 minutes of our session, what is it that you'd really like to share with the audience as far as tips and tricks are concerned?
It's very hard to put entire public speaking classes into a short paragraph because there's a lot that goes into public speaking. It's not something that you can learn in an instant. You can definitely go to a workshop and understand the basics of it, but there's a lot that you need to do as yourself to better your public speaking skills. So there's a few things that you could do in your daily life to try to better your public speaking. If you want to be better at spontaneous conversations, try to analyze every time somebody speaks to you, how you answer. I'm doing it as I go now because I'm like, I answered that question. I was a bit too long-winded, or, I didn't answer that question concisely. I'm not like this master. I'm still learning. But, after a while, you analyze yourself and okay, next time I answer a question, do it faster. Because sometimes you have a lot to say also. So a good tip would be to always listen to your conversations with other people and always analyze how you have replied them, or, simple pauses, or did you say, for too long, or, did you answer concisely? So a very simple thing that you can do is just practice with talking to other people.
Yes. I'm gonna be over-analyzing and overthinking now everything I say while I'm on. You know what, Max? I think this is my. Well, I don't think how many I've done now, but they've all been very, very fun. Don't get me wrong. And they've all gone up on YouTube. So we have our ALYFE Connects playlist on YouTube and on the Facebook group. And so I'm now going to go back through every single one of those. You're going to cost me my sleep tonight.
You're doing well. Don't worry. I mean, not everybody's perfect. I'm going
to critique myself. I'm going to be up all night critiquing.
I'll watch and send you notes. No, I'm kidding. I can critique myself too.
There's a lot to watch now, but they're all very good workshops and very insightful too. So by all means, watch them. But
sure.
you might find yourself filling a few pages of notes before long. Your hand might get tired.
I'm kidding. I think you're doing a great job, and I really like this initiative as well. I'm learning quite a lot from the day that Andy got in touch with me and told me to do this today. I've been watching some of them, and it's very insightful. I'm glad that there are other companies that are taking the time to produce all this content for people to watch. It's great. I mean, you get to learn for free. Why not?
For free, right?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she loves what you're sharing. You speak with so much confidence. Of course you do. You are a professional, a content professional, an industry.
You. Oh, so
James,
when people comment, it comes up?
oh yeah, we can show you all these. I can't see whose name this is because they haven't allowed access via StreamYard, but whoever they are, you're looking good.
Oh,
Can't
okay.
disagree.
Thank you.
Someone
Thank
else
you.
is saying hi.
Hi.
Someone else is saying hello. So we've got a few people showing some love down below.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Lim, I think we.
Hi,
So
Andy.
yeah, we've got an audience tuned in and loving what you're talking about.
Okay,
But
good.
we're of course very, very grateful that you could join us, and it's people like you that have made ALYFE Connects like what it is so far. We've been able to. I know. Yeah, soppy, aren't I? Sentimental, but it's true. We have the pleasure of knowing some very, very talented people, some very, very interesting people with phenomenal stories and lessons, like inspiring and motivational and impressive, and all the rest of it, from a load of different industries. We've had like coffee experts, we've had fashion designers, we've had public speaking and industry profile figureheads such as yourself. So we've been very lucky and we've been very blessed to have a really good range of guests. And I think if the lockdown is extended, I think we'll be doing this. There'll be quite a few more to come. So we're looking forward to things in the next couple of weeks developing. We're planning next week already, week 3. So stay tuned for that. We're planning, maybe I shouldn't say too much, maybe I can't give this away, but we are planning a different kind of series, which will be a bit more like kind of short form, more like less of me talking, which I think some people will be grateful for, finally. They'll be like shorter, in fact, there'll be shorter, sharper and sweeter sessions and speakers and schedules like as of the next week. So we're looking forward to seeing what we can do and try and keep content interesting and varied, but it's guests like yourself which really make it. And so I'm really enjoying it. It's always a pleasure to have you guys on. So,
I'm looking forward to seeing the other content that you guys put out. I think it's going to be cool, and good job, guys.
We're looking forward to making it, for sure. So we've got 5 minutes to wrap up. So again, guys, if you have any questions, get them in below. This is the last chance we'll have to get some free advice from Nat before she starts charging you for it. Because by the way, we're going to include a survey in the link below the Facebook comments. If you guys could check that out, and we'll be including in that some information on Natalie's public speaking workshops. So in fact, while we've got you here, Nat, when's the next session? When's the next session taking place? Is it all virtual, by the way? Like, how are you delivering it?
Of course, it's virtual. I mean, everybody has to stay at home. So the new trend right now is in e-learning. So I think a lot of people are wanting to learn new things. I mean, you see people making all this dalgona coffee and people just learning a lot of things. So yeah, we had a class on Wednesday. It was really good. We're going to have a second class on Saturday. This coming Saturday, which is the 2nd of May at 3 p.m. So that one's, we have 2 slots left, but there's another slot happening on the 16th of May as well. So if you want to join, it's only 80 ringgit for an hour and a half or so. Just send me an email. You can contact me here, Natalie Kniese. Yeah, just send me a DM.
So this is the date of the next session taking place. There's 2 slots available. So guys, if you fancy it, it's 80 ringgit for 90 minutes, which my basic high school maths is telling me is less than a ringgit a minute, which is pretty good value.
Yes.
Actually.
So yeah, join please, because I think it's going to be fun. I mean, like, I had so much fun writing the syllabus. I also learned a lot along the way, and I have so much to share, and I'm so excited. And the thing that would be like a big dream for me is if someone who came to my class told me that they did well for a presentation, I would be like elated. I would be so happy. So I think I'm really looking forward to that. If I can pass on some of my knowledge to someone else and make them do well, I think I'll be really happy. Making me want to cry.
Oh, look, well, you can see the passion is literally showing through your face as it is. I mean, you just got a little bit brighter almost. You're literally lighting up.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
you.
you.
So there you have it, guys. If you needed any more convincing of just how much this means to Nat and just how much energy and passion and pride she's putting into this masterclass, I think it's fair to say it'll be a very, very interesting experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. So get in touch we'll send the information out in the survey in the Facebook comments below. Get in touch with Nat on Instagram at Natalie Kniese. I believe your email address will be on there too, or they can just DM you or something.
If you're sending out that flyer, then everything is on there. So if you're putting that flyer out, all the details are there. If you have any problems and you don't understand, you can just DM me on Instagram. I do check it quite often. So just ask me if you want to.
I mean, and also, and guys, it's worth giving Natalie a follow just for general shits and giggles. Excuse my French, because I mean, you put up a brilliant video I saw last week when the Doraemon thing came out. You put up a very funny video in response to that, which made me laugh. So, guys, check out Natalie's Instagram. She's a busy little bee, even during a quiet time for a business such as this. And so she puts up great content, and she'll be sharing all of the information there, I'm sure, about the workshops and everything else. So I think, actually, Nat, we should probably start wrapping things up there. That's running about to all we have time for right now. Is there anything you want to finish on? Anything? Any last minute advice you want to give the audience before we sign off? Any messages?
No, not really. I mean, I think in the weeks or the days to come, I'll be giving you tips anyways. So make sure you just give me a follow. Ask me any questions. I'm really open to answering any questions you have regarding public speaking or anything. So I'm always open. So if you want to get in touch, do so by checking out my Instagram. You don't have to follow me. You just need to message me.
I think she's worth a follow. I can recommend.
Thank you.
Anyway, so we'll have to say goodbye for now. But look, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an amazing session, very insightful. And we look forward to your continued success with these workshops. We wish you all the very best with them. Check them out. Come out in the survey, guys, with the link below. I think it's really worth it. Like we said, she's condensing like over 10 years, 15 years worth of industry experience into one wonderful sounding workshop, and there'll be tips, tricks for overcoming confidence issues and nerves and all the rest of it. No matter whether it's an audience or it's an angry boss that you're dealing with, I'm sure you'll figure out a good way to do so. So Nat, best of luck with that. Thank you again for joining us.
We'll see. Thank you so much.
And stay in touch. Thank you.
Will do. Bye-bye.
Bye. There you have it, guys. The wonderful Natalie Kniese. So you can find out all the information you need on the public speaking workshop. The next session is going to be this Saturday, the 2nd of May at 3 p.m. So we'll be sending out the information in the link in the survey underneath the Facebook group, underneath the Facebook comments. If you are watching this elsewhere, give Natalie a shout on Instagram, and she will be able to send you more details like that. So that wraps it up for the third session of day 4 of week 2. We will be back at 9 p.m. with a very special guest, Mr. Stephen Raman Hughes, who is joining us from the UK for a live music evening, and it will be hosted by the wonderful Nadia Heng. So we're looking forward to that at 9 p.m. Go and get yourself some dinner and pour yourself a drink, and we'll see you later on for live music. Thank you, and good evening for now.